So what our technician is doing right now is he's surface carving parts of the relief sculpture to create a textured surface in certain areas that will make those areas stand out against other areas that will be treated with a different texture. The technique that he's using is a very old technique. It's been around for hundreds of years. It involves a very sharp gouge, and of course his mastery of the tool is evident here because it has to be very precise and regulated so that it fits within a pattern that we're trying to achieve. So one of the things about the new church that's being designed is to treat the shrine areas in a similar way that shrines are treated in Europe, where you have a complete niche room where one can go into and pray, meditate, focus on the subject of the shrine, as opposed to the way they've been typically treated in North America, which is usually an add-on, a smaller type niche, in some cases just simply a statue placed in a corner. So right from the beginning, the design of the church has tried to address this, and in this rendering here you see the font area as if you were leaving the nave, and on either side, right and left side, are the two shrine areas that have been designed in, which are complete separate rooms. And within these rooms, each one is devoted to a particular subject. So the one side is the Holy Family and deals with aspects of the Holy Family right from the birth of Christ to the death and suffering of Christ. And the other side is treating the subject of the namesake of the church, St. Catherine of Siena. So, for example, this is the concept sketch for the Holy Family. And once this was approved for the type of images that were being represented, this was then being proposed for the left shrine, which in how it would look with the wall with the carvings on it. This room would literally have a couple of chairs in it with a kneeler, votive lights, and its intent is that it would draw parishioners in and so on as an area for devotion and prayer. So this is the Holy Family Shrine mock-up of the actual wall size. It runs from this green tape, which runs behind this image, all the way through to the corner. The Holy Family Shrine starts with the birth of Christ. It's a life-size motif. It ends down here, not where this board is. And then the next scene is a scene with Christ as a young lad with a lamb and Joseph. And the last scene shows Christ in his suffering with his mother. From these sketches, we then laminate up blocks of wood. This is a square, rectangular shaped block, and it's laminated with several pieces of wood. The cartoon, as we call it, is transferred onto the wood, and then the wood is cut out, and you can see how thick it is. It's 1.5 inches. It is reduced in certain areas like background, such as this. And then from that, it goes into the carving stage, where we now formulate 3 dimensions squeezed down into 1.5 inches to create an illusion of depth. And the thing about a relief is it should work not just straight on, but also from angles as you start to go around it in a 180-degree radius. Obviously, as you get flat to it, to the side of the wall, it will break down. But the whole concept of a relief is that you try to maximize as close to that 180-degree radius as possible. So a relief is generated that is very realistic and creates an illusion of depth. Eventually, when this is all carved, this will be stained in natural wood tones with color, as these things on the wall are intended to tie together with other color sculptures within the church. Okay, so on this side, the green tape, which is intended to go all the way to the window and down through the middle here, that represents the St. Catherine of Siena shrine. And we have, once again, 3 images that sort of sum up her life and hopefully be inspirational as images for anyone who focuses on them for prayer and meditation and so on. So in the first image we have St. Catherine's spirituality, her devotion to Christ. It shows her stigmata that she developed on her hands. In the second image, it shows her caring for the homeless, for the hungry, and so on. And in the third image, we have her caring and empathy for other human beings that are suffering, that perhaps are dying. This represents her life spiritually and her impact on fellow man. And hopefully this becomes inspirational when you focus on it within that shrine area. This particular image that you see right here is actually the first carving in that series, where you see the cartoon sketch at the other end. This is carved out of 1.5 inches of wood. The cross is not finished. All the green tape on it indicates areas that still have to be refined more. But within this overall space of 1.5 inches, you have this depth that's generated that by the time it's stained in different colors will become even deeper and more powerful in its impact when you look at it. So in summary, to arrive at this finished product carved in wood, you start first with a concept sketch. The concept sketch, once it's approved, has been enlarged to a full-scale cartoon, and that cartoon then gets transcribed onto the wood, and from that sketch the final product 3-dimensionally is arrived at. So after the wood has been cut out into the shape, we start the carving procedure. This one is fairly far along. It's almost finished except for the face of Joseph. This, you can still see the thickness of the wood as a flat thing with the sketch that has been transcribed. And the technique involves using different types of tools that remove the material into the right depths of the illusion that you're trying to create, such as this particular tool. The thing about carving something like this is you have to realize in that 1.5 inches where your maximum points are, where you don't cut into, in other words, the points that are closest to you, and then the depth that is generated. In this particular case, the face has to be turned so that Joseph is looking at Mary, and the angle has to be absolutely correct, so that the two line up properly. And after this has been roughed out, as you see up here, it gets refined more and more into smoother surfaces. And in this particular case, with textures added, like the surface carving, which you'll see in a later detail. And this type of texture, which contrasts against this texture, the smoothness of the skin, this particular cloth texture against the skin, and the same thing with Mary's face, the smoothness to the hairline. And through that, we create a further illusion of depth within that slight distance of 1.5 inches. And then, of course, this helps to bring out the overall gesture and sentiment of the piece. In this particular case, Joseph's gaze at Mary and Mary's look of affection and love to the Christ child. And, of course, the child's infatuation with looking back at Mary's eyes, with the thumb that's just been pulled out of his mouth, with the other hand grasping part of Mary's hair. All these human elements are ways of bringing the viewer into the depth and power of the piece itself. Even the little cocked toe, these little human nuances that pull the viewer into it. And of course, Joseph's overall gesture, looking at Mary, but yet his hand is gesturing over to the Christ child in sort of a protective way and in awe, in a sense. That's all contained within that. And of course, all these details, not just the expressions, but all these deptual details help to generate this overall feeling of power of the statement that is being made. In all of the works that we produce, we are always trying to sum up the nuances which illustrate the individual's humanity that's involved. Whether it's an image of Mary or Joseph or the Christ child or the Christ as an adult, it's those human elements that tie us to what is being expressed. It is through that connection to the humanity that becomes the gateway to their spirituality, and this becomes inspirational. It is an honor and a privilege to try to depict this. It has to be of the highest quality standards of expressive methodology. The act of working through this expressive methodology on all levels, the nuances that are being expressed, the techniques being used, etc., therefore becomes an act of paying homage to what you're doing, to what it represents, and therefore is a prayer.